Okay, the Senate Education Committee will please come to order. Clerk will take the roll silently. Were minutes distributed? Minutes were distributed? No, minutes, so we've got, haven't got any minutes to approve. Okay. Minutes from January 25th were distributed. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, those all in favor of approving the minutes as distributed, say aye. Any opposed? Minutes are approved. We have today some guests. This is Fine Arts Advocacy Day. We have had some folks in to talk to us before in the past, and I think we've made some progress in advancing the arts, but we're glad to have you guys come in this year as well. Leon Keener is the Executive Director of the Iowa Alliance for Arts Education. Leon, good to see you again. And we have a couple of speakers. Sarah Dougherty is an art educator at Findley Elementary School. And we also have Mr. Kal Penn, an actor who has a number of different functions in this area. So, Sarah, I think you're first on the list. If you would like to start out. Or Leon, if you have introductory remarks, you can do that too.
Okay, first of all, I'd just like to thank, and this is our third time in front of this education committee, and I'd just like to thank all of you for your support. We really appreciate the support you've given arts education in the state of Iowa. I think especially last year, your support as arts as a core subject, that the Senate passed that legislation. We're greatly appreciative of that, and also of the .5 fine arts consultant position at the Department of Education. We really appreciate your support of what's best for the students in the state of Iowa. Just an update as far as arts as a core subject. We've met with Dr. Wise, head of Department of Education, and also with Mr. Charles Edwards, president of the State Board of Education, and we're on their agenda for either their March or May meeting. So we'll be bringing that information up. We'll be pursuing that at the spring meeting. We are very adamant and very committed to the power that arts has to affect education in our state of Iowa. And one of the things that we want to highlight is this year is the Turnaround Arts Program here in Des Moines. So our first speaker is going to be Sarah Dougherty, coordinator of the Turnaround Arts Program.
Thanks, Leon. Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Sarah Dougherty. As Visual Arts Curriculum Coordinator and Turnaround Arts Program Director for the Des Moines Public Schools, I'm responsible for the arts education of the 33,000 students in our capital city. I'm pleased to be before the committee today testifying to the power of the arts to affect real and measurable change and academic success for our students and our state. Previous to my current role, I did serve the students and families of Findley Elementary on Des Moines' north side as the art teacher for 7 years. Findley, performing in the bottom 5% of the state, was designated a Tier 1 persistently lowest achieving school in 2011. The only thing more dismal than the designation was the climate, culture, and overall sense of hopelessness that pervaded our hallways. Teachers in the building worked hard, but without a common framework or sense of success. Parents avoided the school, referrals for behavior were frequent, and the mobility rate, the rate that kids move in and out of our school, was over 30%. Then, as now, almost every single student at Findley Elementary qualified for free or reduced lunch and breakfast. As part of our improvement model, Findley, with the support of district leadership, applied for and was accepted into a national pilot program for 8 underachieving schools, the Turnaround Arts Initiative. Turnaround Arts is a public-private partnership that uses the arts to help narrow the achievement gap, increase student engagement, and improve culture and climate in the country's highest poverty schools. Led by the President's Committee on the Arts and the Humanities, Findley was able to use the arts not only as a flower, but as a wrench to move the system and create positive change. Findley's teachers united around a common drama-based classroom management strategy. In over 2 years of implementation, the school reduced out-of-school suspensions by 57%. Behavior referrals went down overall by 35%. Average daily attendance rose to 96%, and the mobility rate dropped dramatically from 31% to 12%. All of this means more students in classrooms learning all year long. And the arts were the reason they stayed. A drama club was started and was an instant hit with 80 of the 300 students participating. Concerts and arts displays became a building-wide effort, not just the work of the art or music teacher. Painting, singing, dancing, and acting weren't only relegated to special times or special events. The arts were actively integrated into the classrooms of 95% of Findley teachers. This innovative and ambitious instructional strategy, known as arts integration, meant that kids were learning how atoms interact by creating dances, students were acting out text passages to increase comprehension, and learning how to problem solve in math using art processes. Over the course of 2 years, Findley students improved their math proficiency by 11.4% and gained 2.5% in reading proficiency rates. In the final report, compiled by the University of Chicago and Booz Allen Hamilton, 100% of teachers at Findley agreed that the arts contributed to heightened ambition of instruction and overall improvement of the school environment. That school environment now included parents who were eager to see their children perform and celebrated in a way that had not been part of building culture. Parents who had come into the building to experience a performance or exhibit were now less apprehensive when it came time to meet with teachers or administrators about other student needs. Attendance at parent-teacher conferences increased from 82% to 98% since implementing arts-based school improvement strategies. Walking in the building now, you can see, hear, and feel an arts-rich environment. The school has become an embedded part of the neighborhood culture, and we can only expect these improvements to continue. The successes seen at Findley have made it possible for Des Moines Public Schools to grow programming to 4 more schools: Harding Middle School, Oak Park, Cattell, and Madison Elementary Schools. Harding Middle School has had to rethink the way they schedule concerts because so many people attended this fall. Cattell Elementary added an arts component to a Title I reading event and had 500 people attend, an event that used to draw less than 50. Oak Park Elementary teachers used arts-based strategies to increase engagement and decrease the use of punitive behavior charts. Madison Elementary has worked to pinpoint issues with their early childhood students through family arts opportunities. All of these buildings are using the arts to deepen and enrich learning in all areas. School becomes can't miss. Des Moines Public Schools uses a Gallup poll to measure hope, to measure student engagement, to measure entrepreneurial spirit. All of these schools consistently score higher than the rest of the district in those measures. We're creating a pipeline to success via the arts in our schools. These things don't happen on their own. They are strategic, they are planned, and they must be funded. We, as the largest educator of Iowa students, have taken this on because both local and national research points to the arts having real muscle where students' learning and school success are concerned. Too often, educational policy and funding practices have marginalized the arts as extras or specials or just totally unnecessary, even as study after study points in exactly the opposite direction. High-stakes testing has created an artificial hierarchy where math and literacy are isolated from other areas of learning that help our students understand the world around them. Mandates for early literacy and early grades might increase reading scores, but in the meantime, we risk making kids hate school. Without the engagement the arts offer, those early literacy programs become drill and kill, rather than an opportunity to create lifelong critical thinkers who can't wait for what's next in school. Even in uncertain budget times, Des Moines Public Schools recognizes the critical skills the arts give to our students and the role they can play in bridging stark achievement gaps, and they make the arts a priority. Research shows that arts-engaged students are 3 times more likely to have an excellent attendance record and 4 times more likely to be recognized for academic achievement. At-risk students cite arts engagement as a reason for staying in school. High-poverty, arts-engaged 8th graders score higher on reading and science assessments than those who are not engaged in the arts. Students in the arts outperform their non-arts peers on the SAT by 91 points. And of particular interest to you, in your roles, arts-engaged students are more likely to participate in civic engagement and community building. These figures are clear, and the compelling evidence from our schools who are involved deeply in the arts show that the arts matter for our students, our families, and our state. When I was here last year, I heard from every leader that I met with about their own memories of band or art or choir, and I heard about your children loving school because of these classes. Every child who attends public school in Iowa should be able to say the same. Thank you for your time. I'm going to ask Kal Penn to talk a little bit about his experience at Harding Middle School, our turnaround arts middle school in Des Moines.
Sure, thank you. Can you guys, can you hear me? All right. Thank you for having me. My name is Kal Penn. I'm an actor. I've had the privilege of working here in Des Moines at Harding Middle School for the last almost 2 years. I also had the privilege of going to a publicly funded arts high school, a magnet program in New Jersey. It was a suburb of New York City, so the environment's certainly much different than some of the concerns that we're dealing with at Harding. But the framework was similar in the sense that I know from my high school experience the opportunities that it provided young people in terms of confidence building, of course, but also engagement in other non-arts areas was pretty huge. It allowed me to get some confidence to apply to programs in college and post-college that I wouldn't have necessarily had the chance to, particularly as the son of immigrants who did not necessarily know how to navigate higher education the way that some of my friends' parents did. One of the amazing things, I think, and I'm biased because I work at Harding, but things that we've seen has to do with the arts integration that Sarah just talked about, namely the approach to holistic learning. So we've seen increases in math and reading scores. We've seen a decrease in students who are getting expelled or getting detention, and we've seen an increase in parental involvement. But part of that is through the holistic approach to education overall. And one of the most vivid memories that I have is on my first visit to Harding, had the chance to sit down with a geometry teacher, which is a subject I did not do well in. And she was kind enough to outline her lesson plan, which was to explain to young people how to find the surface area of whatever residence they had. So particularly in Des Moines, for a lot of these young people, that might have been a one-room that they were sharing with 4 brothers and sisters and 2 parents. So they would find the surface area, then they would find the surface area of where they were sleeping. Then the teacher would go and find magazines like Better Homes and Garden and Architectural Digest and use that artistic and design component to teach young people how to rearrange their living space to better their studying. You know, so if you've got 4 brothers and sisters and you can't really focus, well, what if you clear out one little corner? What's the surface area of that corner? Does it give you enough opportunity to study and read your book and prepare for the test? And I was sort of floored, both selfishly, because I think it could have improved my geometry scores at the time, but also because here were young people who were engaged, who, you know, their faces lit up. They would say to the teacher, and when we talked to them later, I didn't think that I was good at math. I just didn't understand it. And these are approaches, particularly for lower income, underperforming schools, where there might not be the same type of parental involvement that I think we're seeing in other places. And it was a huge opportunity, a huge tool and resource. There's also an economic component that I would be remiss if I didn't talk about, particularly as the economy is changing. We're looking at fields like STEM, and the big difference, I think, between pumping out engineers and really pumping out innovators is including the arts in incredible math and science components so that young people have the creative thinking skills as we look at creative ways to bring back jobs from places like Brazil and China and India. And the evidence suggests, and I know you've got all the paperwork here, but that the arts are, while not a silver bullet, obviously, it's not magic, but a really nice, very low-cost contributor to really change the game for young people and for the economy moving forward. And so I thank you very much for your time and for having me.
Another point of our legislative agenda this year is we're asking for support for the Iowa Model of Excellence Mentoring Program. This program has been in operation in Iowa since 2006, and it supports beginning fine arts teachers in the state. The federal grant funding for this program ceased in 2015. The program pairs beginning arts teachers in the state with a cadre of retired fine arts teachers who work side by side with these beginning teachers in their local school district. The purpose of the Model of Excellence Mentoring Program is to enhance the current statewide teacher leader compensation mentoring program that the state of Iowa is offering. What it does is provides discipline-specific guidance to fine arts teachers in our state. Teachers in small rural school districts are often the only music, visual, art, or drama teacher in the entire school system. During the past 3 years of our mentoring program, we had nearly 700 mentor visits to these schools, and we visited probably an average of 85 different schools each year. Last year, 75% of our mentor visits were to teachers in Class 1A and 2A schools across the state, which are the smaller school districts. The details of the program are in the packets that our 100 advocates that are here today have distributed to all the legislators. One of the things that I will do is the Iowa Alliance will match with private funds any money that the legislature appropriates this year. So we will do a 50-50 match with any funds that the legislature can do to help fund this program. Briefly to talk about with this program, we have a mentor teacher and then a young teacher who benefited from this program. So we'll have our mentor teacher talk first. She is Deb Reagan, a retired teacher from Bettendorf. So Deb.
Good afternoon. Thank you for letting me speak to you today. I've been part of the mentor program since its inception, and it's an honor for me to work with young people like this. What I do, these students come out of college and they're very well educated in how to teach music, and their classroom skills, keeping good discipline and having fun with the kids while they learn is excellent. The thing that they don't get in college is what do you do with the other things that happen all year long. I have to do a musical. I've never done a musical. So we start looking for a show. I go and help them cast the show. I'll show up, dress rehearsal, help get things ready. State contest. Well, I have 50 groups. There's only one of you. Let's pare it down, put them together, make smaller, large groups, not so many solos. Well, what do? What do we sing? Let's go to the file. So we go and do that together, you know. This would work good, this would work good. It's things like that that they don't learn in college. I'm going to plan a trip. We're going to Minneapolis April 2nd. Great. Do you have your bus? No. Okay, well, maybe we should get a bus. How long is it going to take? 3 hours. I said, no, let's plan on 5 with potty breaks and someone being late. Okay. Where are you going for lunch? Well, I don't know. We haven't made a reservation yet. It's 3 months away. So we take care of that. Where are you going for dinner? Oh, McDonald's. I said, no. You know, we need to do something fun for them. It's things like that that they don't learn that help round out their program. They need help with just things, everyday things. I'm going to Allstate. What do I do? Well, you go to a camp and learn the music, would be the first thing. But it's those common sense things that after 31 years of teaching, you've learned. They can call you and ask questions, and you usually can answer everything right off the top of your head. So it's my privilege to be able to share all that information that I learned while teaching students at Bettendorf that I can pass on to somebody else. Thank you.
Alex is a beginning of 712 vocal director at Albia.
Yep. Good afternoon. Thanks for allowing me to share my personal experience with the mentorship program. As they said, my name is Alex Steinis. I'm currently in my 3rd year of teaching. I'm the 5th grade through 12th grade choir director in the Albia Community School District. I received a high-quality education degree from UNI, but this was simply not enough to have a successful choral program as a new teacher. I was not ready for picking quality literature, piecing together groups for solo and ensemble contest, preparing quartets for all-state auditions, and working with a show choir, especially the show part of a show choir. My mentor assigned by the school district was our elementary music teacher and is now one of the teacher leaders in the district. Although she's an expert in the elementary music field and helped me through certain aspects of my first years in my district, I needed more detailed and specialized help to manage a secondary choral program of 250 students. For my first 2 years, I had the pleasure of working closely with Deb Reagan as my mentor. The first time Deb Reagan came to Albia High School, I was very nervous because I knew she had a successful teaching career, which is something that I hope to have one day. She taught me things that I didn't even know I needed to know. Many unexpected events came up during my first months of teaching, and she was a great resource to help guide me through. There were so many questions I had that could not be answered by just another mentor. The mentoring program allows new fine arts teachers the opportunity to be guided by true experts in the field. I can count on Deb and other mentors like her to say it how it is and mean every word of it. The mentors have the young teacher's best interest in mind, and they love to help in any way. This is because they've seen it all. If I'm frustrated with my rehearsal techniques, they've been there and lived through it. If I'm upset about how show choirs come in together and need guidance, she has the exact fix. If it wasn't for my mentor, my students would not have achieved the level of success in the classroom we did my first and second year. Deb and the other fine arts mentors are guiding new teachers like myself to be effective educators in a difficult field. The retired music and art teachers in our state are the best real-life resource for our new teachers. We need to utilize this resource to its full extent. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. I think just in conclusion, I think when we look at what we're talking about here, I think it's just what is best for the students in the state of Iowa. Where are we going to get what is best for the teaching the whole child? And I think it's a strong fine arts programs for the students with active, intelligent, engaged teachers with a set of standards that the students can follow. So we really appreciate your willingness to listen to us speak today, and we thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you for coming. Are there any questions or comments by any members of the committee? Senator Bowman.
Thanks for being here. Obviously, arts is an important role. I teach high school students, and I see, a large percentage just shine with the opportunities that the arts provides them. So we're certainly, I think everybody at the table is passionate about keeping arts as strong as possible. But I want to comment on your sentiment. I think that's probably the most valid point of the group, is saying that our mentor program, while good intentions, isn't going to help the high school music teacher if it's not somebody that has the expertise in that area to coach. And I think there's a lot of areas that would be similar that at the high school level, whether it's an industrial arts teacher, special needs teacher, a high-level math teacher, you could go on, that need specific coaching, not just somebody that's been appointed a generalized coach to come in and truly mentor and coach you to become a wonderful teacher. And I applaud your efforts of wanting to be the best, and that we're actually giving you a chance to have that opportunity, and look forward to working on improving what we have. Thank you for being here.
Okay, I've got Senator Mathis and then Senator Hart.
Thank you so much for coming. Sarah, I've got a question for you. You described a grant. So was it a federal demonstration grant, or a grant that you were able to do that with the school?
It was not a grant.
Okay.
It was an initiative. There was a public-private partnership. We did get some materials in kind in order to get started, some instruments and some art supplies. But really what it offered us was a framework for those schools to use their school improvement grant funds. So often those funds are used in such a narrow scope and box, and this allowed us some framework and some opportunities to innovate and use some of those funds to increase our arts assets to leverage against school improvement.
So did you started with one school first and then it grew?
We did.
Okay, so when you started with the one school, it sounds like you were really keeping some good statistics and
Yeah.
metrics, and because you've really got your numbers down.
Right.
And there's a reason you do. So
Sure,
then
sure.
how did you take that data and make it more dynamic for the other schools? Did you just say, here it is, here's your plan for the other 4 schools that were involved? How did you then take what you learned at the one school and spread it to the others?
Great question. So first of all, we in Des Moines are always extremely strategic and intentional. So rather than open it up to the other 68 schools in the district, we really wanted to keep a tight feeder pattern. So Harding Middle School is the middle school that serves those 4 elementary schools, because what we wanted to do is we wanted kids to see the opportunity all the way into middle school, all the way into high school and past graduation. The other thing we do is we operate as a professional learning community, and we come together as a cohort-wide group, because you're right, it is very different from having so much control in one school and then trying to move the needle in 5 schools. That's tricky. So we identified some cohort-wide goals. We use the strategic arts plans. We identify school-wide needs, things like attendance, parent engagement. We brainstorm and kind of work with teacher teams, not just arts teachers and not just administrators, but teacher teams on what kind of arts assets we could use in order to meet those school improvement goals, right? So for instance, at Madison Elementary School, there are a high number of students who are first-generation Americans, and kindergartners tended to have poor attendance. And it was just a matter of education of those parents, how important it was to come to school every day. So Madison Elementary came, and rather than have a meeting or send an email or send a note home, Madison Elementary held an arts event in which kindergarten parents came, created a stepping stone. So first of all, they were invited to an arts event, not an informational parent meeting. They created a stepping stone that reminded them that kids needed to step out of the house every day to come to school. And so those are the kinds of ways that we were looking at school-wide need or neighborhood-wide need, because these are all in one neighborhood, finding out what arts assets we have that we can leverage against those needs and enacting them in a strategic way, taking data on the back end so we know what works and what we need to discontinue.
Follow-up. So then how did you engage, you know, we talk about schools sometimes tend to be in silos. So how did you engage the rest of the community in supporting that holistic effort, like what you were talking about, that holistic effort of really raising the child?
Sure. Are you talking about community organizations?
Yeah, organizations, even the neighborhood. If you were in a core neighborhood, then how did you engage the neighborhood and the community, other community providers, other community members that would help support what you were trying to do?
Sure. So I'm going to say right now the arts are an easy sell, right? Those are, it's easy to talk to someone or a community member or a parent or a family about the arts. It's the way that we naturally engage. Everyone from every cultural background has some sort of arts interest or something that they connect to. So that makes the conversation easier from the get-go. One of the things we've also done is rather than really keep our work internal, we've made our work extremely external. So as we've worked in our building to create an arts-rich environment, our next step over the course of our work is making that external. So you'll drive by Findley Elementary School, you'll see a peace pole garden that was installed by parents and families and teachers working together. We work with Des Moines Performing Arts to get our kids out into our community organizations, expose them, and help them become lifelong patrons of the arts. That part is the easiest part, I would say. It's easy to sell the arts.
Senator Hart, and then Senator Hogue.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really happy to have you guys come and explain this. I was not aware of this program, and I'm very impressed by the mentor aspect. As Senator Bowman talked, I particularly am very interested in having a better match in that mentor system. But I'm particularly thrilled because I didn't recognize her at first. But,
I didn't recognize you either.
Deb and I are longtime acquaintances. I used to teach with her my very first year of teaching.
Yes. We've
It's
known
been a
each other
long
couple
time.
years.
A long time, yeah. So it's a special thrill to see you at the end of the table there, Deb. And so my question though is for you. I may have missed this in the thing, but it's really important, I think, sometimes to get people like you involved in initiatives like this. It brings another element that no one else can bring to the table. So I'm curious how you got involved and why'd you end up here in this school in Iowa when you came from New Jersey? Sure. And I'm sure you probably live in California, right? So how did that all
I live in New York. I wanted to be closer to home. No, that's a good question. So part of the program was started through the President's Committee on the Arts and Humanities, which I serve on. Not all committee members are turnaround artists, and turnaround artists are not all committee members. So there are far more far more turnaround artists than those who sit on the President's Committee. So my role here today is much more as an artist than anything else. One of the reasons that I think you see so many professional artists take a role in partnering with schools, I think there are 55 schools now across the country, and there are 55 professional artists, some of whom you might see in more of a commercial arts space, some of whom you might see in more educational arts spaces. But the biggest reason I think, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn for my colleagues as part of the program, but we've all had some sort of a benefit from either a publicly funded or a public-private arts education background. And for a lot of us, that means that we've entered a career in the arts full-time, but for others, it means that they're maybe doing a community arts-based program, but they might be full-time teachers or doctors or journalists. So the arts have touched their lives in some way and given them either the confidence or the skill set to approach something else. Now, I work with middle school kids. Their faces light up when we teach theater, not because they've seen the terrible movies that I've done, but because they haven't, thankfully, most of them at least. But because they genuinely love engaging with somebody when you're teaching history or civics, up on your feet, everybody standing in a circle, really learning about history, learning about the caucus system or the both parties or three branches of government, whatever you've got. It's much different for them engagement-wise than when they're sitting down and taking a test more traditionally. As somebody who didn't necessarily learn in the most traditional way, I can kind of see when kids' eyes light up, and I think that a lot of artists who are involved in each of these schools probably have a similar background. Sure, thank you.
Senator Hogue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for being here today, and especially Cal. Thank you for your work helping us in Des Moines. And I had my question was similar to Senator Hart's, but I'd like to hear more. I mean, how you've alluded to it a couple times now about how important it was in your life. I mean, would you be willing to tell us more about how it is that the arts made a difference in your life growing up?
I am happy to. So I think, in some respects, we're all aware of, you're on a soccer team or a football team, and that teaches you team building exercises. It teaches you listening skills. You've got to implement, especially if you're on a football team and you're looking at plays or a basketball team, it teaches you things like that without you realizing that you're learning those skill sets. And we're also well aware of those skill sets and how valuable they are when we leave school, right? I think the arts are a little less understood, ironic, because we all watch TV, we all listen to music. And so as a kid, you don't necessarily understand that your way of learning might be a little bit unique. But in my case, I was sort of aware of that. My parents have nothing to do with the arts. My mom got a master's in chemistry, and my dad's an engineer. So how I became an actor, I don't know. That's certainly not why they moved to America. But they, I wanted so badly to understand. I was always very interested in science. I was always really interested in concepts related to how does the human body work? What are the, what are the chemical equations that go on in physiology and anatomy? But my way of understanding that was by looking at interactive pieces. So whether you're looking at something online on how the human body works, I've had, I played a doctor on TV, which is obviously not the same as being a real doctor, but the research that goes into it, I was surprised when I was preparing for something artistic. I probably learned a lot more on how the human body works through that process than I did in biology class. Now, I look at some of the programs that we've gotten, some of the incredible teachers who teach biology and physiology through arts mechanisms, and I would invite you all to come to Harding whenever you have a chance. It's right down the street. But their approach is much more integrated, and I think that if I had those approaches, looking at a human body, and now certainly the technology exists for you to go online and see some of these things, but to take the academic and put it into the artistic and combine the two, for a lot of students and a lot of young people, I think is an interesting way to learn. I also think, there's a generation of young people who are growing up with the internet and with the Twitter generation. I'm sure you guys deal with this a lot if you have Twitter accounts, constituents feeling really good about tweeting something really quickly. But both the political process and the academic process are much more lengthy than that. And so if we can provide young people with a skill set that will help them compete and learn better, particularly as technology is changing and as the industries that they're going to enter are changing, I think it's a valuable opportunity at a relatively low cost. And so that's both, I guess, my experiences with it and what I'm seeing with the young people that we've had the chance to work with.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, if I just ask one other quick question.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, Alex, right, at Albia. You bringing your show choir up to Cedar Rapids anytime soon? No. Senator Mathis and I want to know. All right, very good. Yeah. Well, maybe we do and maybe we don't. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do we have anyone else? Senator Hart.
I would just say that I would love to take a field trip to go to Harding. I mean, seriously, I would think that would be, at least an optional field trip would be nice. So if we could arrange something like that.
You are welcome to come to any of our schools at any time. Now, tomorrow might be too late, but Cal's teaching what? Stimulus and response in science class with those students. But absolutely, we would love the chance to have you come and see the work we're doing in these schools and the difference we're making. We, as adults, can come up here and talk till we're blue in the face about the vitality of these programs, but it's when you see the students engaging with their teachers in such incredible and meaningful ways that you can really feel and see the difference that we're making.
Well, Senator Hart, I'd be happy to join you on the field trip. Do you have a bus?
No, but I know how to get one.
Okay, well, Leon, Sarah, Deb, Alex, and Cal, thank you all for coming today. Thank you for what you're doing for the arts. Thank you for what you're doing for the kids in Iowa. We're very, very much appreciative of that. And Cal, as far as your preparation in the arts, I think I recognize you as one of the stars on the House TV series, where he had to deal with a main character who was loud, obnoxious, and egotistical, so clearly well prepared to enter the political environment. The Democrats will caucus in the president's office. The Republicans will caucus in 206. Thanks to everybody for coming today. Senator Sinclair moves we rise.